in the current state of AI, is it being more or less helpful for attackers versus defenders? Because one thing I've been observing and had a few people talking to me about today is, ironically, some of the guardrail training on some of the US AIs are actually frustrating the efforts of defenders in this case. Alex, what have you been seeing there?
That's absolutely right. I can tell you the red teams that are literally objectively evaluating these code bases, they're not trying to create exploits, right? But they're doing, I understand how an objective robot clanker mind might think that it is. Like, I get that. They're all using Kimi and GLM, literally open source Chinese models. The frontier models are not available to them. Even when I traverse my own Bitcoin analytics stack, I'm not going out onto the web, right? I have a 3.7 billion row, 1.7 terabyte Postgres database of every coin's movement in the history of Bitcoin, every change to the entire state. And I ask, Claude Fable 5 to go and, pull some data from me. Half the time I get safeguarded, right? Just to look at my own data on my local machine, right? So, and this is to your point about the Hugging Face CEO, this is exactly the same thing that they faced when the OpenAI lab leak happened. So I don't have a great policy answer to this at the moment. I just know that on its face, it's absurd that American, companies and victims are having to rely on Chinese AI models. It's insane.
Yes.
Well, just on your policy point, I think the line between defender and attacker needs to change as well. Like, I've been pushing this for how many years now? We need to go on offense. And the thing about Clarity, which is making me crazy right now, is that there is a rewards for justice program. Finally, we can permission white hackers to go on an attack, going back to the early days of our Constitution and privateering. We have to have a much better policy response. Like, people cannot, this is illegal. This is like no difference in someone going to your house and stealing your car or robbing your house. And like, just because it's crypto doesn't make it any better. Like, it's like, so we do need a much better policy response across the board. Ram?
Well, I like, Austin, the way you pose that question, super interesting. Like, does technology favor the attack or the defense? Most of the history of technology is that it favors the attacker. You've seen this with Stuxnet and Iran. You've seen this with the development of aircraft. So many forms of technology favor the attacker. The defense that you have to cover is simply too broad. The fact that the United States has two oceans on both sides has been an incredible benefit. There's just too much to protect and defend and insulate and inoculate. So it goes towards the offense. It is a shame that we don't have an open source American model yet. China's got several and they're impressive, and the VCs don't want to fund an American open source model, which I also can't blame them. I can't blame them for that. Where's the value capture around open source?
I mean, this is one of those, what's the right way to say this, is it's a public-private coordination problem. Open source models are in many ways a public good, a little bit like a park. Everybody benefits from them, but nobody individually has much incentive to fund one unless it's purely charitable giving. I think China having to play from behind on the hardware and original development front took a very different approach here, because now you're playing like a, call it multipolar competitive threat game, which is very different than just looking inward and figuring out what you'd fund. I feel like an open weight model is the sort of thing the government should be looking at. Department of Defense, this seems like a pretty mainstream DARPA sort of thing. There are definitely levers that we could have to pull, but we are just not doing it in the United States. And even today, as I wanted to get up to speed just to have this discussion with Alex for our segment, Claude is guardrailing me and I end up using Quen. What does that really say? I'm an American citizen here, guys, right? Is this not the circularity